But what was striking was the calmness of the crowds on the day that London suffered.
The disappearance of Natalie Holloway. On May 26, 2005, Alabama teen Natalie Holloway arrived in Aruba with 124 fellow graduating high school seniors. 4 days later, she didn't make her return flight home. Classmates remembered last seeing her leaving a nightclub and getting into a vehicle with 3 young men around 1:30 that morning.
She was never seen again.
Joran van der Sloot and brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpo were arrested multiple times but never charged. However, due to van der Sloot's lies and attempts to extort money from Holloway's parents in exchange for information, he remained the prime suspect. In January 2012, he was convicted of first-degree murder of a woman in Peru. The day after he pleaded guilty to that murder, a judge in Alabama granted the request of Holloway's father to declare Natalie officially deceased.
No closure, perhaps, but Beth says she has found peace.
The Virginia Tech shooting. The campus of Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University was never the same after April 16, 2007. That morning, undergraduate student Sung-Hui Cho shot 2 people in his dormitory before chaining the doors of the Norris Hall building and taking another 30 lives, then his own. Almost 24 more students were injured, some while trying to flee. The tragedy sparked criticism of America's gun laws and mental health resources.
Traditionally, the university would host several events to honor the lives lost that day.
4 years later, the U.S. Department of Education fined the university for failing to alert everyone on campus in the 2 hours between the first and second attacks. While it wasn't the first and far from the last, Virginia Tech is still considered the deadliest school shooting in the U.S.
32 innocent lives lost.
The murder of Meredith Kircher. In 2007, American exchange student Amanda Knox was studying abroad in Perugia, Italy, when she and her Italian boyfriend, Raffaele Sollecito, were accused of murdering her roommate Meredith Kircher. The couple was ridiculed in the Italian press, particularly Knox, who was painted as a devious seductress motivated by sex. In 2009, both Knox and Sollecito were convicted on multiple charges, including murder and sexual violence, with Knox sentenced to 26 years in prison and 25 for Sollecito.
The court sentences Knox to 26 years in prison and Sollecito to 25 years.
Italy's legal process and interrogation tactics were widely criticized, eventually leading to Knox's acquittal and release in 2011. But it wasn't until 2015 that she and Sollecito were officially exonerated.
Fully exonerated only last year by the Italian Supreme Court.
The murder of Lacy Peterson. On December 24, 2002, soon-to-be mom 27-year-old Lacy Peterson went missing.
She's considered a high-risk missing person under suspicious circumstances.
Her body wasn't found until April 14, 2003, one day after her unborn son Connor was discovered a mile away. Since the beginning of the investigation, Lacy's husband Scott Peterson was a suspect due to his odd behavior in the midst of his wife's disappearance. Investigators learned that he was having an affair when his girlfriend Amber Fry came forward.
Scott told me he was not married. We did have a romantic relationship.
She had been unaware that he was married. Scott was arrested on April 18th and charged with the first-degree murder of his wife and second degree of Connor. He was found guilty and sentenced to death in December 2004. However, he was resentenced in 2021 to life in prison without parole.
The California Supreme Court reduced his sentence to life without parole because his trial judge had excluded potential jurors opposed to the death penalty.
Bernie Madoff's investment scandal. After decades of a seemingly successful career as a stockbroker, former chairman of the Nasdaq Stock Exchange Bernard Madoff admitted it was all, quote, one big lie. In December 2008, he confessed to his sons Mark and Andrew, who both worked for him, that the business's wealth management arm was actually a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme.
He gathered them in the study and confessed that he had been running a Ponzi scheme.
Madoff defrauded thousands of clients, including charitable organizations. In the years since, a number of clients reportedly took their own lives, including his son Mark in 2010. Madoff died of natural causes in 2021 while serving a 150-year sentence.
At his 2009 sentencing, Madoff turned to his victims. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know that doesn't help you." It didn't. and neither does Bernie Madoff's death.
The disappearance of Madeline McCann. While vacationing in Praia da Luz, Portugal, British couple Kate and Jerry McCann experienced a parent's worst nightmare. On the night of May 3, 2007, the McCanns went to dinner at a restaurant with friends, while their children slept in the apartment nearby. The parents took turns checking in on them throughout the night. When Kate went in, her twin toddlers were asleep, but 3-year-old daughter Madeline had vanished.
Madeline McCann was nearly 4 when she disappeared from the family's holiday apartment in Portugal in 2007.
Portugal authorities launched an investigation that was later criticized because residents were not interviewed and the crime scene wasn't properly secured, among other mistakes. A media circus ensued, with tabloids turning on the McCanns. The search for Madeline continues, and in 2020, German police announced they had a potential suspect. As of 2023, no charges have been filed.
For all the theories, Madeline's parents cling to one simple fact. There is no evidence their daughter has come to any harm. It gives them hope that she is still alive.
The Enron Scandal. Considered one of the largest bankruptcy filings in U.S. history, the fall of Houston-based energy company Enron is synonymous with scandal.
Some other companies fold because of products not selling or something happened, but this was done, this company collapsed because of greed, corporate greed.
For years, executives used fraudulent accounting practices and inaccurate financial reporting to cover up debts and failed ventures amounting to billions of dollars. On December 2, 2001, Enron filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
When Enron declared bankruptcy in December 2001, 4,000 employees lost their jobs that day.
Thousands of Enron employees lost their pensions and 401ks, along with their jobs. Several executives were charged with federal fraud, with some sentenced to prison, including CEO Jeffrey Skilling and CFO Andrew Fastow. Enron's founder, Kenneth Lay, died of heart disease before his scheduled sentencing.
Boy, I didn't expect that.
The death of Caylee Anthony. On July 15, 2008, just 1 month before she turned 3, Caylee Anthony was reported missing by her grandmother.
The grandmother reported it had been a month since Casey or anybody had seen Caylee.
But according to her mother, Casey, she'd actually been missing since mid-June, supposedly kidnapped by a babysitter, a story that was immediately suspicious. Casey was charged with murder in October, and Caylee's remains were found near the Anthony's home in December.
With regret, I'm here to inform you that the skeletal remains found on December 11th are those of the missing toddler, Caylee Anthony.
Because of her conduct and lies to authorities, Casey became the most hated mom in America. The case was a media sensation, especially during the 2011 televised trial. Her defense team argued that Caylee had accidentally drowned and that Casey and her father tried to cover it up. Perhaps the most shocking part of the case was the verdict: not guilty.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
The London 7/7 bombings. In the early hours of July 7, 2005, Londoners made their commutes during the city's morning rush hour. Within seconds of each other, there were 3 explosions on the London Underground just before 9 a.m., orchestrated by Islamist terrorists.
Reports are just coming in of an explosion at Liverpool Street Station.
Bombs were detonated on 3 train cars outside different stations: Liverpool Street, Edgware Road, and between King's Cross and Russell Square. Almost an hour later, a 4th explosion happened on a double-decker bus in Tavistock Square.
We're now hearing reports that a bus has been ripped apart in an explosion in central London.
The bombings took the lives of 52 victims, in addition to the 4 perpetrators, and left 784 injured. Later that month, more attacks on the transit system were carried out, but fortunately, didn't fully detonate.
But what was striking was the calmness of the crowds on the day that London suffered.
The September 11th attacks. Since the tragic events of 2001, September 11th has become a day of mourning for Americans. The first attacks took place that morning when 19 Islamic terrorists hijacked 4 flights traveling to California. 2 planes were redirected to New York, crashing into the World Trade Center's Twin Towers.
Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City.
The 3rd plane crashed into the Pentagon in Virginia. while a passenger revolt on the 4th caused it to crash in a field in Pennsylvania, rather than its intended target, believed to be the White House or state capitol.
4 minutes later, Flight 93 crashes into a field near the town of Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
Between the 4 locations, 2,996 people were killed and many thousands more injured. 9/11 remains the deadliest terrorist attack in history.
Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror.
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.